And so, Mike, would you mind if you invite the speaker for the next
section? It's time to hear from our task forces. I don't know about you, but I had an awesome time yesterday at my task force meeting. But now we're going to hear from the Church in the New Landscape Task Force. And so I'm going to invite Mark McLennan and Samuel Adhikari, who's going to share a little bit more about their work.
We got so lucky to come after CB Samuel's message and Pastor Leah's message.
Yes.
It's like, how lucky are we? Like, they set the stage so perfectly for church in the new landscape. And I think after you guys listen to those two sessions today, everybody will come
to our task force.
And we're waiting for that.
Yes.
Yeah, we have 8 people that joined our task force. 8 people. What happened? So we're on fire.
Yes. And I would like to say, Brother Mark, he helped the new church task force, talented and mentored me as well through this whole task force. And I wanted to give thanks to Dr. Bang Bang for bringing us and to involved in the new church, the church in the new landscape.
It's exciting for me to mentor a 15-year-old. You know. And it's so wonderful. I want you to know that. Okay, we have to go fast.
Yes.
So next, please. We're going to start. Okay, this is the. Can we go next? Next. Okay, we start with what is this? The rally cry. Everyone's supposed to have a rally cry. So our question is: do you know the rally cry in your task force? See, church in the new landscape, we already have our rally cry down. You should join our task force. Okay, so let's all read it together. Can you lead to read the rally cry?
Yes, in a rapidly changing world.
Read it together. We all read it together.
Can we read it together?
Yeah.
Yes. In a rapidly changing world, a powerful church full of faith stands strong, bursting with love for a broken world, united in purpose and vision as we face the challenges ahead. We are appointed by God to complete the one task He has commanded us to do, the Great Commission.
Okay. You clapped at the appropriate time. Well done. Okay. Next, please. So where are we in terms of growth? And we're stealing the slide, or borrowing, more appropriately, the slide. We don't steal in the church in the New Landscape Task Force. We're appropriating the slide from Dr. Bambang's presentation, the growth of global Christianity in the last 100 years. Clearly we can see that as a percentage of the global population, church growth has plateaued and even declined a bit. Next, please. And if you look at the last 20 years, then on the yellow is the last 20 years, even broken down by region across the world, we can see that the church is suffering in terms of its growth. Next, please. So these are some of the questions then that we are asking in the task force, and we're on this journey over the next 2 or 3 days to answer these questions. Can the church, as it exists today, do what it's failed to do in the last 120 years? Next, please. And then can today's local church, with the model that it currently uses, finish the Great Commission? Next, please. And then what fundamental things have to change to align the church in Asia to become the Great Commission church that will fulfill its mandate? And then the last question is, and this is kind of the outcome that we hope to achieve in the task force, How can the church navigate that kind of change? What decisions, actions, realignments need to happen on the ground?
And in our task force, the challenges we have divided into two groups, the lions and the lambs.
The lions and the lambs.
And for the lion group, the closing window, the cultural invasion, the generation gap. And for the lambs, leadership issue, discipleship making and mission, and church growth model. Next.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The closing window, the reason we have brought 2033, because the fast moving and the massive culture shifts are being answered with slow and incremental changes in the church. There is a very short amount of time left to have maximum impact to finish the Great Commission, while the comfort level of the church is at all-time high. The rise of AI presents the greatest challenges in the history of the church, while potentially being the greatest opportunity for the church. Next. The cultural invasion, there is an increased penetration of liberal bias and anti-God messaging into the minds and hearts to the next generation. The gender ideology movement has leveraged social media and reached a tipping point of influence in the minds and hearts of the young around the world, including those in the homes and churches, parents, who are the front line disciple makers of every child in the church, have not been discipled by the church to raise godly families. The generation gap. There is ever-winding gap in the culture, language, and style between teens, youth, and young adults, emerging leaders and current leaders, driven by social media and powerful changes in global culture. These gaps are quickly widening. There is a loss of enchantment with the church, and along with that, a loss of commitment to the local church.
Next, please. So we move to the lambs. Next, please. Leadership issues, the shortage of emerging leaders in the church, as many potential leaders are choosing careers over ministry. I thought, what an amazing presentation by Pastor Leah. It kind of immediately inserts itself into our thinking around this issue. Fast-moving pace of change in the world entices many ministry workers to try their hand in other things rather than wait for an opportunity to lead in the church, as well as fewer young people willing to pay the price of entering ministry. At the same time, there's a lack in the overall quality of the emerging leaders of today. Next. Sunday focus, the template of the average local church is a ministry template of one primary worship day or event per week over one that missionally serves and disciples community in a Monday to Saturday mission. And this is kind of like, this has emerged over hundreds of years as a Western model or DNA of the local church, and nobody really knows why or how it all came about, but this is church today. It's a Sunday morning event. And all the resources, the majority of resources, are pulled into that Sunday morning worship event. Church buildings, venue, equipment, facility improvement programs are sucking up the vast majority of church resources. Few resources are spent on evangelism and disciple making, mission, and community transformation initiatives. Next. And then the last is church growth models. So a priority on adding congregates over community transformation, then church planting and outreach as the primary vision and mission of the church. So this is our journey, the lions and the lambs,
Yes.
in the church in the new landscape.
Hoping to see you this afternoon in the church in the new landscape task force, because it's so exciting to discuss together.
It is the most exciting.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, mentors and their children. Okay.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you, Samuel. But before you go, we have a quick question for you.
Yes.
I know you shared around 6 challenges But in your opinion, what challenge that requires the most urgent and pressing attention in terms of the church?
They all are like number one. But number one, I will say, is focus, Sunday focus. 2, leadership, the lack of emerging leaders. Would you like to say number 3?
I agree. I agree with that. Like I think maybe because the church is the hardest thing to change. Navigating change is so incredibly difficult. Even in organizations like I run a parachurch organization, and navigating and inspiring change, a shift in strategy and focus and direction, even in a ministry, is like really, really intensive and hard to do. And so for the church, really significantly shifting into something new is a very, very complex and challenging thing to
Thank you,
undergo.
Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you, Samuel. Shall we give them a round of applause?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Gwen Di Rosario, and I'd like to say on behalf of the team of the Family Discipleship Task Force, a big thank you, Dr. Bambang and the committee, for this opportunity to work together. And for those of the team, if you have the next slide, please. Those on the team who could not be here, they send their congratulations to AEA on this wonderful occasion. I'm going to fly through my presentation now, which is giving you the gist of our Family Discipleship Report. And this is how we like to start. If we see the church as the bride of Christ, then we'd like you to picture every family unit as the cell in the body of Christ. Every single one of us here is a son or a daughter, husband, wife, father, mother, grandfather, auntie, uncle. We are all part of family. And if the family is healthy and thriving, then the church is also healthy and thriving. And we believe that the purpose of family is to reflect the image of God, bring glory to Him and honor to Him. The family is the means by which God's will is spread across the earth for generations. And the purpose of family is really God has made families so that they will be the foundations for individuals, the church, and society. I'm sure none of us will dispute this definition of the biblical model of family. It starts with one man, one woman in covenantal marriage. Family includes singles. They produce children, and they live together in generational community. And in our document, in our report, which you can download from the QR codes that appear throughout the presentation, you will see more of the definition and theology of family. Now, there is a problem though. Families are being impacted internally and externally. Forces are at work. And in the research that we did with practitioners from across Asia and in other parts of the world, here are some of the things that our practitioners are saying. On the next slide, we see that the factors that are impacting families, you see the number of words here, and these are all the words that were used. The bigger the mentions, the larger the size. And the top two actually that are impacting families are relationship and social media. So if relationship is an important factor internally for strong families, healthy families, then from what we see in AEA's recent family conflict and domestic abuse research, our families are in trouble. Our families are struggling. And there is a lot of concern. Whilst, in families, conflicts are expected in all households, there are clear signs that Christian families need help in mending relationships, knowing how to ensure all these don't escalate. I'll just give you just a quick glimpse, and you can learn more about this in tomorrow's interest group by Grace He on domestic abuse. Now, these are statistics on Christian families. Between 1/5 to 1/3 of couples say, I wish to divorce because we tend to have too much disagreement. They don't know what to do and how to get out of this rut. In the area of domestic abuse, you can see here all the different areas, physical, emotional, financial, spiritual. The percentages are just too high. Strong marriages are the bedrock of any family, and not knowing how to deal with conflict, and worse still, when abuse takes place. Not only is the relationship between the spouse affected, but the impact on the children may last for a lifetime and for generations. So this is something the church, we need to deal with. And my question to us as leaders here, what is the state of marriage and family relationships in your church? Are you aware? The church in Asia needs to intentionally include the strategy of family discipleship as part of her equipping of her people. Okay, but the top factor, relationship was second. Top factor, if you already heard, and just to recap what we heard from Mark on the first night, social media is impacting family from externally. And I'd like you to just watch this video and pay attention to what it has to say.
India's top court is set to deliver its verdict on whether same-sex marriage can be allowed.
Taiwan becomes the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage.
Prevent the legal position on marriage from being challenged in the courts.
Dear leaders, like it or not, the negative impact of devices and social media has already entered into our families and your church. You know, the AI is the wave that is coming. We've heard about that. But what is already sweeping through our homes and churches is pornography. The figures you saw there are figures of young people from the church in Christian homes. So they are impacting not just the minds of the children today, but will probably affect their marriage also as they grow up. And who is it impacting the most? Well, apart from Gen Z, there's Gen Alpha, the children that are coming up, who already are playing with this from the age of 2 or 3 years old, as soon as they can swipe. So we really need to be careful. And the future of the church here, they are our future. So if we are not careful and we are not intentional about equipping them, then we are actually running into a problem in the future, a big problem. The next slide. You see, very rarely do you have one of these generational shifts where the generation that leads, like parents, have such a different set of experiences that they don't have the context to support their children in a safe way. This is a quote from a Facebook whistleblower. You see, our children, our Christian families, need help. A whole generation is growing up fully immersed in social media and their devices, given by their parents who are either without awareness of the dangers and the repercussions, okay, or are just nonchalant about it. So if we don't handle this issue intentionally, then again, we will have issues and problems that are hidden and we don't see it. Can you just click to the next? Yeah, keep going. Next slide, please. So what we are advocating is that family discipleship happens both in the church and in the home. Go back a slide. Thank you. Just follow the instructions, thanks. What are we advocating here? That our churches intentionally have the process of equipping every member, which includes the spiritual leaders in the home. And we think this is the big missing part in our churches. The church is the equipping center and that supports family. And in the home, we are advocating that the home should be the place where intentional process of equipping every family member happens. And this is primarily the responsibility of the husband as the head of the home and the wife as his supporter, all living together in generational community. Next slide. So this is what we're advocating. What is actually the reality, what's happening? In research that asked the question on family discipleship in the church, when asked, church leaders were asked, how much emphasis is given? How intentional are you investing in finding out the needs of families? How intentional are you in equipping parents to pass down faith? Unfortunately, the results is, as you can see, very little or some, all in the high 80s. This is a big area of concern, and our prayer is that out of this meeting and the information that you take back with you from our report, that something can be done about this whole area of family discipleship in the church. Next slide. In our report, I'm not going to go through the details, but you will also find responses from practitioners who highlight areas in our church that need to be reviewed, need to be discerned whether they are still relevant or not. And we need to maybe tweak some of these things, like discipleship making model, the way the family may be disconnected from the church life, and the curriculum that we are using. So our prayer is, you take the report, look through the comments, and like Reverend CB has shared with us, bring it before the Lord and ask, what are you saying to us, Lord, about this and the whole area of family discipleship? Now, I've talked about a lot of negatives, but despite all these challenges that I've mentioned, God is moving. And in our talks with people from across the nations, we see that the Lord is already moving, raising up movements, initiatives in the area of marriage in countries like India, in Indonesia, in Thailand, moving fathers to start fathering movements across the nations, from Indonesia to Singapore to Malaysia. I hear even Mongolia, they're trying to start an initiative. Here you see a picture of fathers gathered together in prayer for the homes, for the families in Singapore. AEA has also made it part of our 5-year strategy to push the D6 movement, which is based on Deuteronomy 6, to help the church equip the home and help the home realize the responsibility of discipling the family. Prayer is growing. You have movements like the 2BC, 2 billion children in prayer and missions. God is stirring hearts, my friends. And if you want to hear more about that, you can again go to the interest group that Pastor Ann will be talking about, the 2BC, I believe, tomorrow. I put some, wait, hang on. Sorry, go back. I put some pictures up here to bring my sharing to a close to encourage you, my friends. These are pictures drawn by Cambodian children. The Evangelical Fellowship of Cambodia is training parents and ministry leaders to help their children turn to God and ask God what He's saying to them, to practice listening prayer. And these are some of the things that they hear. This is a glimpse of what happens when our children seek God and what He has to say to them. One boy said, I see Jesus holding me, holding my hand. And in fact, several of the kids who didn't talk to each other had the same picture. One boy said, Teacher, I don't understand. Jesus is giving me bread. He had no idea Jesus has said that I am the bread of life in the Bible. One girl drew, she said, this is a throne and there are people around it. She has no idea that there are thrones and God is enthroned in the Bible. This is just a glimpse of what will happen when we do family discipleship and we help to train our children. Can you imagine your children, your grandchildren, your nephews and nieces learning to hear God from a young age? What would happen as they grow up? You know, whatever the world might throw at them or social media might throw at them, they will keep hearing God and be guided and be resilient in this whole area. Next slide. So our task force is looking at 4 things here. Strengthening leaders, we've done that. In the next 3 sessions, we are going to advocate for family discipleship across Asia. How do we do this? We're going to discuss amongst leaders. We're going to look at strategy to strengthen Christian marriages in Asia. And we're going to look at the strategy to protect and effectively disciple Gen Z and Gen Alpha. So if you don't want to go to the church task force, you can come to us. Okay, and I'll end on this slide. So we also have a rally cry. So let's go and disciple every family to be disciple makers, starting with their home, to thrive and bear much fruit that will last. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Gwen. You have mentioned wonderful things to us, but this is my question to you. So what will be your suggestions for us in terms of family discipleship? Maybe if highlights, you can say highlights.
Well, our plea will be, please take this message, take the report, take all the information, all the studies and research data that's available in the report, take it back with you and start sharing it with church leaders. Because it will take not just awareness, but a mindset shift to start looking seriously into having family discipleship. This is not just about having a children's ministry or youth ministry. But if you are a pastor here, please, we do suggest that you not run out and grab any program on family or fathering and just start running it. That's not family discipleship. We have people on our team who are willing to journey with you, to work out a strategy with you, and to basically network you with other pastors who've started this journey.